So how are fees set up in the fee-for-service world? We're unique here in British Columbia, where we have a tariff committee, which is a committee with the doctors of BC and the government, and they look at different fees and make suggestions to the Medical Services Plan and the Medical Services Commission about how those fees should be adjusted. In general, if a section, such as my section in pediatrics, for example, would like to bring a new fee forward, we sit down and we fill out the appropriate documentation and put it into tariff, and they have a discussion there about a new fee, and then if it's going to move forward, then it's signed off on by the board of the doctors of BC and also by the Medical Services Commission, and then the fee comes into use. Generally, this happens if doctors get a raise or a pot of money, we can create new fees. And if you are interested in creating new fees, then generally you speak to your section and give them some of your ideas and have some discussions about that. In the alternate funding world, there is also a committee at the Doctors of BC that gets together and talks about increases to alternate funding. And we have what are called grids or payment ranges for different specialties in BC. And those payment ranges are adjusted on an annual basis with new monies that generally come forward through negotiation. So again, if you're working on a service contract or on a salary, then there are ways to apply again through your section to this alternate funding committee to try and move that forward. There are appeals processes along the way if you don't agree, or if your fee's been turned down, or if your fees are trying to be adjusted, and the Doctors of BC generally will help with that. So we do have a group of fees put forward in the fee guide, or what's called the fee schedule, and there's a couple of ways that you can access that through the Doctors of BC website or through the MSP fee schedule website, and you can pull up the fee guide and see all of the fees that have been organized for different sections. If you're new to BC, it's important to read the preamble to the fees, because this describes what's included in a fee and what isn't included. The fee guide also gives us some direction as far as medical legal matters, general services, some out-of-office hours premiums, which we'll touch on later, along with diagnostic and therapeutic and surgical procedures. Once you read the preamble, then generally you just stick with whichever section you're in, pediatrics or surgery or psychiatry, and work with the fees in each of those sections. It is important, as I suggested, to read the preamble, and it talks about how the language works as far as what takes precedence over other language within the fee guide. And if you have questions about those, you can speak to your section or speak to some of your peers, or there's some numbers provided at the end of the talk about contacting the Medical Services Program, who will also answer some of your questions. You have to pay particular attention to the different units of time. If you're billing a conference fee for 15 minutes, as a general rule, you may not have to spend the full 15 minutes, but you have to spend at least 7.5 minutes. So look at the language around times, such as any part thereof, or greater part thereof, or a complete part thereof. And again, this has to do with when you're adding on different time units, or if you have conference fees, or we'll touch on it again for the after-hours fees. As a general rule, the Medical Services Plan does not pay for standby time if you're waiting for an operating room to become available, or you're waiting in the emergency department for a patient to come back from x-ray, so it doesn't pay for those periods of time. There are times when physicians go on transports, and there's special billing codes that can be used for that. The other thing to pay attention to in the fee guide is the prefixes, or the different codes, and you'll see a description of them here on this slide. Certainly pay attention to section or the prefix C If you're a surgical assistant, there's certain fees that are outlined where surgical assists can be paid. Under G, we'll talk about the Specialist Services Committee, and a number of their fees are paid for through a different mechanism, which we'll talk about, and they're under G fees. There's a number of other fees with code Y, and that means you're able to bill that fee in addition to a consult or a follow-up that you're performing. So again, you have to pay attention to what's included in your consult or follow-up or your surgery, or what you can be doing to add on to those fee codes.